Kelly Hancock.
Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Present.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Pastor Steve Hinton from the Heart Song Fellowship Church in Fort Worth. Pastor, thank you very much for coming down. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
God, we're so thankful for this day and for this court and the responsibilities that they assume. I see in Ephesians where Paul urged the church there to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which they have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. We know those words are not just religious words, but they're words to be applied to our personal lives and our civic lives and in the lives of these that have responsibility in the court. Bless them and help them today and add your wisdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pastor Hinton, for coming out today. Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have one announcement relating to the agenda. That's under the Administrator section, item 8A1. This is action concerning a lease agreement on the Auto Crimes Task Force. We're going to hold that for 1 week. Also, would just like to mention and remind the Court that that we will have the Criminal Justice Planning Committee today at 2 o'clock. That's a committee of the Court that we hold once a month on the first Tuesday of every month, and today's the first Tuesday of the month. So it's at 2 o'clock and 5:04. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of May the 29th.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. At this time, I would like to recognize the folks who had kind of helped us with our Employee Appreciation Day. And Ann, would you like to come down and help on that?
Yes, sir. Every year for the last several years, our Employee Appreciation Day, the first Tuesday in May, which Commissioner Johnson started 24 years ago, has, for the last several years, has been sponsored by 3 different groups, and one of them is Leisure Foods, and Commissioner Johnson is graciously going to take the recognition to Margie from us for thanking her for her participation. Additionally, 5 Star Correctional Services provides the cake and ice cream, and they were supposed to send a representative. Do they have someone? Well, there you are. Come on up. You slid in. We want you to know how much we appreciate your participation, and thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
for all Then we also have Carla Reeves from the Tarrant County Credit Union. And Tarrant County Credit Union, as you know, helps sponsor that event and pays for weenies and hot dogs and all sorts of things. And Carla, could you come forward? We want to thank you.
I just have to talk. Try to stop me. Judge Whitley, Commissioners, thank you so much. We are so privileged to sponsor this event. We've been serving county employees for the past 57 years and helping to sponsor this event for the past 19. And it's really only fitting because over half of all current county employees are members of the credit union. And of the 10,000 members we serve, nearly 70% are current or former county employees and their family members. So the same folks that make the county great lend significantly to the success of the credit union and in making us a great place to do business. So we are very privileged to sponsor this event for the hardworking employees of Tarrant County. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. At this time, we will have our employee recognition. Again, we do this each month. The first, I think, Commissioner Fickus, would you like to introduce somebody at this time before we move into our employee recognition?
Can I do that real quick?
You bet.
I've got two students with us today who are with a program called VitalLink, which is sponsored by, I believe, the Northeast Leadership Forum in Northeast Tarrant County. I have Jonathan, is it Shire? Jonathan, would you stand? And I have Haley Davis, and they're both from the Birdville Independent School District, and we're taking them around the county, and they're kind of shadowing some of our people, and today's court day for them, and yesterday I think they spent in South Lake, and tomorrow they're doing JPS and I think the public health, so they're going to be around with us for the next until Thursday. So we welcome you and thank you both for being here. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Fickus. Again, we're going to recognize our employees. We'll begin with our 5-year employees, and so as I call your name, please stand and then remain standing until we get finished with the 5-year group, and then we'll move on from there. Our first is Roy Allen with Juvenile Services. Janet Austin, Sheriff Booking. Christy Barnacle, Information Technology. Spencer Bohannon Ewell, Information Technology. Travis Bowling, Sheriff Confinement. Monica Butler, Sheriff Confinement. Robin Cooley, Public Health. Robin? Maletta Douglas, Sheriff Confinement. Dawn Ferguson, District Attorney's Office. John Garris, Sheriff Confinement. Daniel Greason, Precinct 4 Maintenance. Esther Gutierrez, Medical Examiner's Office. Kathy Henderson, Public Health. William Jackson, Precinct 3 Maintenance. Shannon Kelly, Juvenile Services. Okay. Quintavas Kennan, Sheriff Confinement. Well, if somebody's here and they're a 5-year employee and they don't think I pronounced that right, stand up. Because they're probably right. Carolyn Kim, District Attorney's Office. Curtis King, Sheriff Confinement. Melissa Lancaster, District Clerk's Office. Wilburn Lawson, Sheriff Confinement. Narisa Lee, Sheriff Confinement. John McCaskill, District Attorney's Office. Suzanne McDonald, Public Health. Saeed Olenbaugh, Sheriff Confinement. Aaron Pitts, Sheriff Confinement. Barbara Powell, Information Technology. Abel Reyes, Juvenile Services. Tina Reimer, Domestic Relations Office. Rita Rojas, Sheriff Communications. Gilbert Rosado, Precinct 2 Maintenance.
Raise your hand. There you go. Thank you for being here.
Tony Shorter, Precinct 1 Maintenance. Curtis Spurlock, Information Technology. Augustine Thomas, Sheriff Confinement. Larry Walls, Precinct 4 Maintenance. And Tony Wiley, Sheriff Booking. A lot of 5-year folks. We're very glad that you're with us. Thank you very much. Now for our 10-year employees. First is Sylvia Barreos, Public Health. Alicia Conchola, Public Health. Kimberly Collins, Information Technology. John Dews, Sheriff Confinement. John. Donna Fox, Tax Office. Esteban Guerrero, Precinct 2 Maintenance. Kay Hancock, Human Resources. Carlin Harris, Sheriff Confinement. Harriet Holman, Information Technology. Paula Holden, Tax Office. Rhonda Holan, Sheriff Confinement. Pamela Livergood, County Clerk's Office. Letitia Sumberlin, Sheriff Booking. Tom Turpin, Sheriff Warrants. And Darrell Williams, Housing Assistance. Let's give these 10-year employees a hand. Thank you. Now for our 15-year employees. Melanie Alexander, Information Technology. Susan Black, Auditor's Office. Susan. Linda Buckner, Sheriff Personnel. Darrell Caston, Sheriff Confinement. John Colliette, Sheriff Confinement. When these folks are smiling, I'm thinking, how bad did I mispronounce their names? Dana George, Purchasing. Vanessa Hall, Sheriff Confinement. Marilyn Lee, Sheriff Confinement. Lisa McCurdy, Auditor's Office. Warren Mitchell, Sheriff Warrants. Anthony Olson, Sheriff Confinement. Michael Reagan, Sheriff Confinement. Ruby Williams, Sheriff Confinement. And Jacqueline Wortman, the 342nd District Court. Jacqueline. Let's give these 15-year employees. Now for our 20-year employees. Angela Franco, CSCD. Danielle Kennedy, the District Attorney's Office. Anthony Pollard, Information Technologies. Anthony. Ann Throng, District Attorney's Office. And Cheryl Walker, Elections Administration. Let's give these 20-year employees. And now for our 25-year employees, I will ask them to stand, and I will say a little bit about each one of them individually. First is Ron Bertel with the Auditor's Office. There's Ron. Started with Jim Causey. Then when he first came to the county, there was no general ledger. In fact, when he came to the county, one of the first things that came in was the first PC. When I asked him about some of the memorable moments, he said it was, one, the 1989 budget discussion about eliminating the administrator's department.
Some of us still remember that.
He said, but they eliminated the administrator's department, but they did keep GK.
There you are.
He also said he remembered some of his discussions with Sheriff Carpenter regarding the commissary. I can imagine that those were some very interesting discussions. When I asked him what, again, he liked most, he said it was a great group of people, always trying to do the right thing. He said he really had enjoyed working for both of the auditors he'd had a chance to work for, being Jim Causey and then now with Renee. When I asked him, also one of the things that he remembered and was most appreciative of was the compassion that was extended to him as his wife had battled cancer, and she passed away in May of 2005. And he said, the county was always there for me and was very helpful as I was going through that. Now, when I asked him, kind of what had happened in the last few years, he remarried in October of 2006. He said, it's been different. He said, I'm not sure I ever would have expected it, but he said it's really been great. And is your wife with you? Our heart really goes out to you. Does he analyze your checkbook and all of the data? Somehow I can believe that. Ron really does help us as far as what I guess is now referred to as data mining. Being able to take information, and that's the one thing I guess that computers have allowed us to do more than anything else, and is to be able to go back and look at the data of the past and see how it's comparing with what we're doing today. When I asked him, he said, I just keep on keeping on. And I think, Ron, we appreciate that very much. We know that when we have a need for information, that you'll find a way to dig it out and give it to us. We joked about it a little bit in the fact that, as a CPA, sometimes we got all the information. You just need to tell us how you want it and what you want it to look like. And Ron really does help us a lot in that particular area. Since the last time we talked, he's had a son graduate from high school and is finishing his first year at TCC, and so I know you're going to be with us for at least another 3 or 4 years. And if yours are anything like mine, it could be as much as 10. So again, thank you very much, Ron, for your service to Tarrant County. Next is Randy Dimbo with Transportation Services. There's Randy. Basically has spent all his time in the Central Garage, 25 years. When last we talked, we talked about the fact that some of his more memorable moments was the tuition reimbursement, the fact that he had an opportunity, I guess, in 2003 to go through leadership development. And here's another one we really need to pray for. Debbie Snyder was his mentor in that process. Randy does a lot of volunteer work as volunteer chaplain at the raceways. He attends Walnut Ridge Baptist Church in Mansfield and really does a lot of volunteer chaplain type work. When I asked him what he liked most, again, it was having the opportunity to work with Renee and Joy Lee. Since last we talked, he said, everything had really been good. He still loves the opportunity to work with the county and the people he's had a chance to work with. He said, I've seen the fleet at our garage grow, but throughout that growth, never have the standards slipped. And he said, we continue to work at a high level and take great pride in the work that we do. Randy, we appreciate very much the 25 years you've given to Tarrant County. Next is Brenda Fontenot with Sheriff and Warrants. Brenda wasn't sure she was going to be able to make it today. She was originally came here from Louisiana. She's had some surgeries, and she said, you know, throughout that, the department has always been very good to me, has been very caring. She could not have enough to say about good things to say about the respect that she has for Sergeant Manchester and the way that she's been treated. She said, I look forward to talking to you in another 5 years. So as you see Brenda, please congratulate her on the 25 years of service that she's given Tarrant County. Next is Joyce Ho with the Medical Examiner's Office. Joyce was another that wasn't sure she was going to be able to make it down here. She said that, you know, she's been in the toxicology department ever since she joined. She was very excited about the new building. She said it's been great. We're really, you know, we're becoming busier and busier. She said people are just dying to get to us.
No, thank God I said that.
Well, anyway, when you
Watch the news tonight.
they're going to have to pick it up off the internet, which is the way we want it. Joyce, again, as you see Joyce and have a chance to congratulate her on the 25 years of service that she's given at Tarrant County. Then our last 25-year employee that we're going to recognize today is Cynthia Marks with Pretrial Services. And Cynthia, everybody is very busy this time of the year for whatever reason, maybe coming back off the holidays or maybe getting ready for budget. But Cynthia has been with Pretrial Services for the last 17 years. She's, you know, she really feels like she found her place there. Since last we met, she's received a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and continues to take advantage of the tuition reimbursement program that the county has, and was very excited about that. So again, as you see Cynthia, thank her for her 25 years of service. Again, we want to thank everybody. You know, we say this, and I don't want it to be just something that you feel like, well, you say this every time, because we mean it very sincerely. You folks are what make Tarrant County the great place it is to live and to work and to raise a family. And your passion for public service, whether you're serving somebody who's in one of our jails, or servicing somebody who comes in for you know, their plate renewal, or for filing lawsuits, or maybe it's serving the folks in our different departments. You all take a great deal of pride in that, and you always put on that smiling face and make people feel like they're very important as you're dealing with them. And I hear that from citizens time and again when they have an opportunity to interact with the county. And I really can't thank you enough. We all can't thank you enough for what you do to put on a great face for Tarrant County. Refreshments, 504C. We'll take just a small recess while y'all head back that way. 760 years of service we just recognized here today. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you do for Tarrant County. Board members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, a week ago to item number 2 under the administrator's report, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve an interlocal agreement between Tarrant County and the City of Fort Worth as relates to the Trinity River Vision Project.
Move approval. Second.
There a motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, a week ago to item 4, and Ms. McMillan will be up here in just a second for item number 3. On item number 4, we're requesting that the court rescind Court Order 112174 that approved an interlocal agreement with the Fort Worth ISD as related to asphalt overlay of Diamond Hill Jarvis student parking and Carter Riverside High School East Driveway, which is located in Precinct 4. The reason that we are asking that we rescind this particular order is because you will have a new order under the county judge and commissioners and Commissioner Johnson as relates to that. In order to do that order, we need to rescind this order.
They're changing their request. I'd move approval.
Second.
There a motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Ms. McMillan is here to address the court as relates to item number 3.
Judge, Commissioners, we're asking you today to consider adoption of a resolution as it relates to the Eagle Mountain Lake Public Improvement District Number 3. You may recall in May of 2009, Commissioners Court established this public improvement district for the purpose of financing various public improvements, mainly the roadway, through the assessments and the issuance of public improvement district bonds. On January 18, 2011, the Commissioners Court approved the revised service and assessment plan for the PID, the assessment roll, and the official determination of total cost of the public improvements that were expected to be financed through these bonds. Since that time, it has now been determined that the developer will now be reimbursed initially for the public improvements solely from the monies that are received through the PID assessment revenue. So as the revenues come in for the PID assessments, the money will then go back out through a reimbursement agreement through the developer. The county is not obligated to issue PID bonds. However, we can issue PID bonds at a later date once we feel comfortable with the sale of the lots as they go forward. The cost of the public improvements has remained the same at $2.9 million. And what we have before you now is a request for approval of the resolution that includes the reimbursement agreement that details repayment provisions and the service and assessment plan that has been revised and updated to reflect these changes.
All the attorneys are in agreement on this?
Yes, Ross Martin from Kelly Hart and Hallman is here if you have any questions, and Ike Shoup representing the developer is also here.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Ms. Glenn, Ms. Worthy. Good morning. Good morning.
Our first item is to request that you receive and file the personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is to request approval of an out-of-class pay extension for the tax office. This is for the incumbent of position 2377 Motor Vehicle Training Supervisor, who is performing the duties of the Associate Chief Deputy Motor Vehicle position. This has been going on since December, and so we're asking for an extension. The cost is $1,647.81.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank
Mr. Beecham.
Your Honor, other members of the court, we have 7 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2012-088. This is our annual contract for sign shop supplies. Recommendation will be to award on a per unit price basis, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2012-090. This is our annual contract for sign, post, and anchor material breakaway style material. Recommendation would be to award on a per-enterprise basis, selecting as our primary vendor Allied Tube and Conduit, as our secondary vendor Central Line Supply.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2012-107. This is our annual contract for the purchase of warehouse boxes and lids. Recommendation be to award on a per-enterprise basis, awarding to Accurate Forms and Supplies.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4 is another bid award recommendation for our bid number 2012-1110. This is a bid for the purchase of tactical air masks for the new jail facility. Recommendation be to award to Casco Industries on a per-enterprise basis.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 5 is an item in regards to RFO 2012-056. This is a request for offer for construction manager at risk services for the Northeast Sub-Courthouse Expansion Project. We're seeking permission to conduct negotiations with Bryan Construction Services, Steel and Freeman, SPA Contractors, and Sedalco.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 6 is another bid award recommendation for RFP 2012-065. This is an RFP for the enterprise storage products and professional services. Our recommendation would be to award to the EMC Corporation the amount of $3,484,656. If approved, we're also seeking contract approval. Just a little bit of background on this particular RFP. The Gartner Group, as you remember, were involved in reviewing the specifications and making any revisions that they seemed necessary. They did that. The specifications were declared generic and certainly fair and transparent for any vendor that might submit proposals. The evaluation committee, who are in the audience this morning, consisted of Mark Bloodworth, the IT server manager, Janie Zhao, the IT CCC Center Manager, Jeff Nicholson, Chief Deputy, the County Clerk's Office, Doug Gowan, Operations Manager with the District Clerk's Office, Eric Metcalf, the Director of Technology from the Sheriff's Office, Ralph McBroom, and Diana Lee from our office. Another point that I'd like to make is none of this evaluation committee had conversations with any of the vendors. The financial information was not viewed by the evaluation committee until the completion of their evaluation. It was handled entirely in the purchasing department by Ralph and Diana. I think we have some comments this morning from Pete with the IT department, and he's here this morning.
It was the recommendation of the evaluation committee that the proposal from EMC Corporation should be the one selected.
That's correct.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
The proposal submitted by EMC is clearly in the county's best interest from both a technical and a cost perspective. Representatives from IT, purchasing, audit, budget, county clerk, district attorney, district clerk, risk management, and the sheriff's office worked together to ensure that all the county processes were followed and that the award recommendation before you today is absolutely correct. The RFP was written from the RFP template provided by purchasing. Technical specifications were developed by David Holm, who's the supervisor of IT's Enterprise Storage Group. Gartner Research conducted multiple reviews of the technical specifications to validate that they enable a level playing field for everybody that could respond to the RFP. Gartner made several recommendations for enhancements to the specifications to ensure that the RFP leverages Gartner's knowledge and experience with hundreds of storage procurements throughout the world. All of Gartner's recommendations were included in the published RFP. As Jack mentioned, the technical evaluation team was made up of 2 managers from IT and 3 senior staff from IT's largest storage customers. Technical evaluation of the responses was completely separate from cost evaluation. The technical team did not have access to the cost information as they were scoring the responses. Cost scoring was done by purchasing using their standard formula as it was published in the RFP. David Holm, who I mentioned, served as a resource for the technical evaluation team to answer questions about our existing infrastructure and the proposal responses. IT and purchasing worked together to contact respondents with requests for clarifications that came from the technical team. The RFP allows, but does not require, meetings with RFP respondents. The technical team didn't request, didn't require, and didn't conduct meetings with any of the RFP respondents. The response from EMC meets all of the RFP requirements without any additional expenditures. Their solution approach is clearly detailed and includes implementation timelines. The response from HP is $1.2 million higher, does not provide a means to back up mainframe data, and does not meet the RFP requirements for capacity in multiple areas. The response from Vion also does not include any way to back up our mainframe data and would require implementation of a second backup software infrastructure in order to meet the RFP requirement for backup speeds. Staff estimates the cost of addressing these Vion issues at $800,000 in addition to the RFP response costs. Vion's solution does not include implementation timeframes and provides only a very high level description of their implementation approach. Delaying the award of this RFP imposes significant risks to county operations. For example, we have no storage available to complete critical system upgrades, including an important upgrade to SAP. Another example is that our oldest storage area network is no longer supported by the vendor, so an outage in that system would cause interruptions to every application in the county that depends on a database, and we would lose our ability to back up those systems. The risk of failure of unsupported components grows with every day that we continue to rely on them. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
We have 2 audience participation forms that I would like to call on at this time. One has a whole bunch of names on there, and I don't know if you've got a speaker that you have identified that is going to speak on behalf of the whole group.
Yes, we do.
If so, then if that person would come forward, and then after that person, I believe we have Fred, is it William? I'll continue my mispronunciation of names. Fred Williamer? Well, I was close. I got the William part right. But if you'll follow them, that'll be okay. Please, as you come forward, state your name, who you're with, so that we can put that into the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Fred Aber. I'm from the Hewlett-Packard Corporation. With me is Mike Matus, also from Hewlett-Packard Corporation, as well as 10 other individuals from Hewlett-Packard who have a vested interest in this RFP response. We had submitted a letter yesterday. I know that all the Commissioners received a copy of this. I just wanted to highlight a couple points where HP believes that the analysis for this RFP was not properly conducted. One of them was the process. Hewlett-Packard Corporation has had zero interaction with county staff members to present any information regarding technology or product differentiation. The HP staff had made repeated attempts to meet with the IT staff through purchasing, and each request was denied. The Tarrant County Purchasing Manual provides that the RFP process take into consideration the relative importance of all evaluation factors set forth in the request for proposals. Tarrant County IT staff members did not conduct any evaluation of the HP solution, nor at any time did they contact HP to request a review of the HP proposal. HP believes that the strength of the newest technology in the marketplace proposed by HP far surpasses that of the current vendor in use at the county facilities. Since no serious consideration was given to HP, the result was effectively a single sole source contract for EMC hardware and software, as demonstrated in the document submitted to the Commissioners Court today. For these reasons, HP respectfully requests that the recommended award decision be delayed until the county IT staff members, including the County IT Steering Committee, complete the due diligence required to make a thorough review. Do you have any questions for the HP?
Any questions, court members?
Did you try to contact all staff?
Yes,
Email, telephone?
email, telephone, I did that. Mike Matus did it as well.
We did it through purchasing as the appropriate channels during the due diligence of the bid process.
Did you attend the pre-bid conference on February 22nd?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
And I did meet one of the staff members at a public event in downtown Dallas, and I talked with that individual and asked to be able to meet with him as well.
And during the pre-bid conference, you didn't get enough information to...
At the pre-bid conference, there was roughly 50 individuals and corporations that were there. At that time, we were not able to present any sort of discussion related to our proposed solution. As I mentioned, I believe our solution surpasses what the current incumbent has, yet the county commissioners and Tarrant County IT staff members haven't looked at that product solution set at all.
Mr. Matus, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I just wanted to add that the county didn't necessarily need to talk to potentially EMC because they have existing EMC technology. They're familiar with that technology. What we proposed is significantly enhanced technology introduced in the marketplace prior to some of the EMC technologies that are in place here. So all we're saying is potentially the staff could not have known what we were proposing without talking to us so that we could clarify that solution and bring out the merits of that technology as it exists today. So,
you heard Mr. Rizzo's comments earlier with regards to the different proposals. Did you have any comments with regards to his statements regarding backup or anything along that lines?
As far as the backup stuff goes, I can understand the predicament that the county's in right now with having older technology. That was part of the reason why HP proposed the new solution to you. He had mentioned that the network was going bad. Those sort of things were, as far as the backup solution goes, those were covered in the HP RFP response. And I'm confident that if the commissioners in the Commissioners Court give HP a due diligence review, that we'd be able to take care of those needs for the county.
How come y'all did not bid on Group 5?
Group 5 was related to NAS governance and concerns a product that HP recently purchased called Autonomy. That's a new product set in the HP portfolio, and there's some questions that we needed to ask the IT staff members related to specifically what kind of things were needed from a NAS governance perspective or from an archiving type perspective. And we never got the opportunity to talk to the staff members about that, so we were not able to get those questions answered and respond to Group 5.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Now, did the IT committee not have a chance to look at these companies?
No, that is not part of the process.
Well, on a $3.5 million project, I would think that I might want to look at it if I was on the committee.
Well,
the evaluation committee was quite diverse. It included all of the users. It included experts from the IT department and from various others like the auditors and the district attorney's office. There is nothing more that the IT committee could have brought to this that would have enhanced what the evaluation committee came up with in terms of process or recommendation.
let me ask you, IT or anybody, this question. In Group 4, it said backup to disk Avamar. Based on my knowledge, Avamar is a proprietary EMC technology. Do you have anything that can work with that?
Each of the RFP groups was written so that they could propose to integrate with what we have or replace what we have. And Group 4 was written that way also.
Commissioners, my name is Paul Merrifield. I'm with HP. Just a quick response to that question. We did specify an alternative technology to meet that requirement.
Do you dispute the fact that your price was $1.2 million higher than the other bidder?
No, Commissioner, we do not dispute that at all. I mean, if you look through the RFP through the separate 5 groups, you will notice that the majority of them say you can either, modify or upgrade this product set or replace it. Since, as Commissioner Wynn mentioned, the EMC Avamar product is a proprietary product, HP does not have the ability to sell that product. So therefore, as an option, we presented an alternative solution that would require replacement of the Avamar product set. Now, as far as the difference between the proposed HP price and the proposed EMC price, I'm not sure what makes up the price differences, but I have got to believe that part of the RFP was that EMC does not have to replace some of the software technologies related to like Avamar. Maybe they just have to do an upgrade, whereas HP would have to come in and replace those product sets. The other thing, too, about the RFP is when we were at the pre-bid conference, as Commissioner Wynn mentioned, there's 5 separate groups of this RFP. And at the pre-bid conference, it was talked about that a vendor can reply to one or any of those 5 groups, and that the decisions for each of those 5 groups would be made individually.
Any other questions?
I have about 3 pages of notes that I took over the weekend. Personally, I'm not comfortable with making the decision today, and if you want me to, I can go through all the reasons. One.
Go ahead. I was going to say we've got another party wishing to speak, and so.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Why don't we hear what Mr. William E. has to say, and then I think we might get into our own discussions. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Good morning. I thought I was going to get out of this for a minute there.
Yeah, good luck with that. Please go ahead and state your name, who you're with, so that we have that in the record.
As Fred William E., I'm with Vion Corporation. Last week we discovered on your website that you had planned to make the award to EMC. We had expected this to be an extremely competitive procurement, not only technology and in price. We were very much taken aback that we were well over $1 million less than our EMC. Even we were even more surprised that the bid was $700,000 higher. EMC's bid was $700,000 higher than the one they had bid last year. So that sort of taken us aback. Secondly, the technical evaluation. Vion Corporation is a systems integrator. We sell EMC, IBM, NetApps, all these products. We have a $700 million contract to deliver this to the federal government. So we're very experienced in all of the products that would have been recommended. So we're quite surprised that the technical evaluation was that far apart. So our like with HP, we're also very surprised. There was no conversation. All we do is deal with government. And normally in these bid situations, there's a first pass at bids. Then there's a sort of a culling out and a short list. Vendors or entities normally bring in the top 3 for verbal discussions. We were surprised that didn't happen. We would request, or respectfully request, that you do postpone this, that you look in reevaluating this, and possibly bring us in to talk about our technical capabilities. I would like to mention that our bid did include a mainframe backup solution, a mainframe part, so that may have just been missed. but that would have been covered had we had a chance to do oral discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions?
Did you attend the pre-bid conference?
Yes.
Was it helpful? How
Yeah,
come you didn't
there-
ask all those questions at that time?
It's very hard to ask a lot of questions at that time. Normally during the pre-bid conference, you do a lot of listening. If you start asking a lot of questions, you could possibly give away your solution, which could be a small competitive advantage. But we feel very strongly that our bid met all of the specifications.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Questions to either, I guess, the IT or the purchasing, or comments, or?
I have a question. Is any of the members of the evaluating committee, does any of them has any experience in enterprise storage technology? In general?
Come on up.
Pete, why don't you get up here, or Jack, and y'all kind of also.
I'm Mark Bloodworth, server administrator.
Okay.
As a user, we utilize the storage provided by our storage group to run our Exchange system, various applications that require storage. So we are a utilizer of storage.
Specifically EMC technology?
Yes, currently EMC.
Right. Do you know anything about other vendors, HP, NetApp, IBM? Are you familiar with those architecture?
No firsthand knowledge other than what we've read and researched.
So without talking to them, then how do you evaluate the viability of their proposed solution without having firsthand understanding of their technology?
Let me get that one.
Okay.
The evaluation team was selected as part of a separation of duties issue. The people who know the most about our storage and about storage in general were involved in writing the RFP, so they were not scoring evaluators of the RFP. David Holm is here. David, would you come up? David wrote the RFP, working with Gartner, and he also served as an advisor to the evaluation team. So he was there with them to answer questions that they had, both about our infrastructure and about the technologies. And as it relates to learning about technologies and understanding about technologies that we don't have here in-house, there are other, and I would claim, better ways to get them than by getting it directly from the vendor who's trying to sell you the gear. I believe that one of the gentlemen from HP mentioned that he ran into one of our staff at a conference. We, as part of our learning process, as part of our due diligence, constantly attend these things to see demonstrations of the products, learn about their capabilities, and gain the basis for research so that we can make an informed decision about technology that we don't have in-house here. I think, David, was that you who ran into that? And at that conference was one of the things that you did to look at other vendors' technologies and,
yes,
and understand those capabilities? Okay. So I hope that answers that question.
If you look at the, it was just that simple, then, enterprise storage engineer wouldn't be making six figures. It was just attending a conference and then understand the technology. Honestly, I don't buy that.
That's one of the ways that we learn about technologies. Talking to a vendor directly and having them come in and demo the product is definitely another way to learn about the technology.
Do you think that's a good business practice?
What is a good business
To
practice?
actually talk to the vendors who came in maybe top 2, top 3? Wouldn't that be a better business practice?
My understanding of the good business practice is to follow exactly what we said we were going to do in the RFP, which is what we did in this case.
And
Did the RFP not give you the option of visiting with?
Yes.
It gives the option. It doesn't require it. And the evaluation team made a determination that it was not necessary for them to do that in order to understand the proposals that were given. And so it wasn't needed, and it didn't happen.
If you look at Group 1, for example, cost proposal, Vion was scored 30. Okay? References, they have a 10. If you look through those scoring system, you will see that from a cost standpoint, either HP or Vion is less expensive than EMC. Where they got dinged is during the executive summary, the business objectives, and the solution approach. All three areas are highly subjective. Unless you have a quantitative scoring methodology that is fair, I don't see how you can arrive at such scores without having a good understanding of their technology.
Would you like to hear from a representative of the evaluation team as to how they did that?
Sure.
I can't answer that. I'm not sure exactly the process that they went through to do that.
I talked to a couple, and they told me that it's very complex technology. It was way over their head, and they rely on Mr. Holmes. And they said that Mr. Holmes was very neutral. He did not lean one way or another. And David, I want to thank you for taking my phone call over the weekend on your day off. Are you familiar with other enterprise storage vendors?
Yes, sir. I spend a lot of my time doing research. We do have conversations with other vendors. We've had, outside of the RFP window, we do have other vendors come in and demo their technology. We've talked to NetApp, IBM, Dell. We've talked to lots of different vendors about their storage technology.
How come NetApp, especially NetApp is the number one in the NAS market, right?
Yes, sir.
They did not bid. And how come IBM is the state of Texas standard? They did not even jump at this $4 million opportunity. Do you know why that is?
I can't answer why NetApp didn't apply for Group 2. I can say that some of the groups, NetApp is an excellent vendor, but some of the areas, such as Group 1, their technology doesn't meet our needs. So, for example, the NetApp gear does not support mainframe integration. There are a very limited number of vendors that do, and essentially all of the vendors that do mainframe support replied to the RFP.
During our conversation, you mentioned that after this 4-year period, after this $4 million, we still need at minimum additional 25% additional storage capacity.
That's not exactly what I meant to say. What I was trying to say is a typical organization, if you speak to Gartner or any of these industry analytical companies, if you look at a typical organization from the year 2010 to the year 2020, you can expect the data to be managed to grow by 44 times. So today, if you were just to look at the raw disk that we have under management, we have slightly less than a petabyte. Since we're a couple of years into that time frame, a petabyte, 1,000 terabytes.
1,000 terabytes.
So somewhere between now and 2020, I would expect that we will be purchasing on the order of 20 terabytes of storage. That's a very conservative estimate. We get requests from district attorney's office, medical examiner. All of our customers need more and more storage. Nobody throws anything away. They need to keep the data for longer and longer periods of time. And so while this is a substantial storage purchase, we will be buying a lot of storage over the next 10 to 15 years. That's unavoidable. We're looking at all kinds of technologies to manage that effectively and in a cost-efficient way. So this storage RFP is really a drop in the bucket of what we can expect over the next 8 to 10, 15 years.
Do we have a strategy to analyze the existing data that we have to determine or index those data, to determine which one needs to be stored, which one needs to be deleted, to save additional storage, because we just can't increasing our capacity.
That's the challenge that every organization is wrestling with right now, sir. Part of what was included in the RFP Group 5 was a tool that would allow us to do that very thing. However, we provide services for our customers. So we can make recommendations, we can make requests, but it's not our role to say this data must be deleted or you must keep this data for a certain period of time. There are legal requirements that we're under, but basically we're in the business of serving the needs of our customers.
David, how do you commented the fact that we're going to be buying a lot more of this in the future.
Yes, sir.
How do you keep us from being put over a barrel and basically not having to use the same vendor throughout this process? And so is one of the big components is how easy it is to link with other vendors? Is that one of the criteria that you look at, is so that if some company is writing it basically to say you'll always have to buy from us or you'll have to start all over?
Part of what we look at is migration. You know, do we get locked in? A lot of what I look at is the right technology for the right usage. So we have 4 different storage technologies in use at the county right now for different purposes. So some of these new areas that are coming up, I'll use the example of District Attorney's Office. They want to capture and catalog all of the dash cam video and all of the interview room video. That type of data is only accessed half a dozen times in its entire life. It needs a completely different storage support infrastructure than, say, a database for a big application would have. So we try to match the usage with the correct technology. Certainly the vendor lock-in is something that we want to avoid wherever we can. Part of what drove the evaluation in this case is the interfacing with the existing environment. One of the things that I told Commissioner Wynn in our phone call was that we're somewhat unusual as an organization in that, for the most part, our data and backup environments work the way we want them to. And the chief complaint that we have is that we don't have enough, or it's so old that it's unsupported and the county's at risk. So there are lots of organizations out there that aren't able to provide the services that they want because of their storage infrastructure or their backup infrastructure. We're very fortunate that we don't have that problem.
So we can anticipate another $4 million in the next 4 years?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's all driven by our customers. I mean, I can't give you exact numbers. I can tell you that the future purchases may be different types of storage, but this is all, you know, we don't use any of this data, right? This is the data that all of the departments use. As they grow, we have to grow with them and provide them what they need.
David, tell us what EMC equipment list here. I mean, looking at this list. To me, some of it is upgraded from the current old technology, which is about 3 to 4 years old already. Okay, so we're paying for old technology being upgraded. The underlying technology of what we have here is old. Is there a VMAX in here?
Yes, sir.
Which one is it?
That's the response EMC had to Group 1.
Okay, do you know what VMAX that is?
I believe it's the VMAX 20.
VMAX 20?
That was announced this year at their vendor conference.
How come there's also a mid-tier solution in there called VNX?
That's the replacement for the NAS. That's Group 2. That's the network accessible storage. That's the storage that your home directories are on, that some of the applications use, whereas the VMAX, that is the storage that is given straight to the servers for the databases, for the mainframe.
So we have a mixture of Tier 1 and Tier 2 products?
Not so much tier as type and usage, but yes, mixture of technology, sir.
All with the same vendor?
Yes, sir.
How did you find out all this information about EMC and to know everything you're telling Commissioner Wynn?
I'm very passionate about my job, sir.
So you talked to somebody? You communicated with somebody?
Well, not during the RFP window, sir.
How long have we been using EMC?
Since the first EMC gear, I believe, was purchased through Dell in 2005.
I just find it bizarre that you don't talk to your vendors on this kind of project.
On that equipment list, I also noted we have an upgrade to the Avamar.
Sir.
Okay. And then we also have something called DD890, and I believe that's a data domain product.
Yes,
which
sir.
EMC just acquired.
About 2 years ago, they acquired that company.
2 years ago. My understanding is those two products basically do the same thing. Why do we need both?
Well, that's an architectural decision, sir. The data domain is going to be backing up the server, the physical servers that have very high change rates of their data. So we're talking about database servers. It also will be backing up the NAS. It has a very high network impact. So the Ethernet network has a tremendous load put upon it. The Avamar solution is designed for our virtual environment. In the virtual environment, all of the virtual machines are sharing physical connections. The signature technology component for Avamar allows a very tiny impact on the network. So it was an architectural decision to get the right tool to back up the right gear.
And my understanding, the DD890 is yesterday's technology. The latest is the 990. Why are we buying old technology?
I believe they use the same code base. I don't have any hands-on experience. My understanding is the difference between the 890 and the 990 is a capacity issue.
I did not get a chance to review what HP and Vion and other vendors proposed, but I assume HP or Vion, can you answer my question here? Did you propose Tier 1 product all the way through?
They absolutely proposed Tier 1 product. There's no question, sir.
We proposed Tier 1 and Tier 2 as per the RFC requirement.
And we did as well. I'd also like to mention that although we weren't able to respond to the Avamar proposal, since we had to replace the technology, we proposed a solution that unified both of those backup environments. So that the challenge we mentioned, having two different technologies, two different things, we could unify that in the frame.
So part of, I guess, the assumption I'm making, do any of the vendors that we're talking about have technologies that will allow them to use other organizations or other vendors?
To a small extent. On the storage front, most of the vendors tend to use their own proprietary intellectual property, their own algorithms for managing the data. Some of the areas are designed to be compatible with other systems. So Group 3, for example, that's where we send the backup data. That unit is designed to work with multiple backup software suites. And all of the vendors' gear was compatible with what we have. I will say that HP's response to that area was to replace our backup software in addition to providing the hardware.
So I guess my question, to some extent, goes a little bit to what Commissioner Fickers was saying. It sounds to me like that once we have a vendor, if we're ever going to make a switch, then in all likelihood, we're going to have to replace existing operating software to make that switch, so we can pretty well count it's going to be a higher dollar amount. The ultimate question then should be, looking at the current technology that we're trying to get to, which one has the best current technology, not which one are we already locked into because of prior decisions.
I would agree with that. There's one other factor that goes into the analysis, sir, that's very important, and that is what sort of pain and risk are we going to endure when we change?
And so I guess ultimately my question is, how do you determine that without having talked to the other two vendors?
The responses that all of the vendors provided was quite extensive. Thousands of pages of documentation. And so there was no direct conversation with the vendors per the direction that I would.
So I guess basically the evaluation team relied totally upon you going through the thousands of pages, because I'm going to bet the ranch that the evaluation team didn't read through those thousands of pages. And they never took an opportunity to sit down and talk with the individuals and to hear them explain in as close to layman terms as they could why they felt like their product was better, whether it be for the long run or the short run or any run in between.
I do know that the evaluators did have access to all of the documentation and were encouraged to.
How many of the evaluators are here today? Stand up. All of them. How many of you read the thousands of pages? The IT folks. 3 of you. Okay, thank you.
I think my concern is that we didn't. I actually don't have a problem with who you pick, but it's the process. If you've got, these are big dollar projects, there's a lot of scrutiny when you're dealing with those kind of dollars. And the fact that we're not communicating concerns me. That we have a process that, could probably be improved. Don't know that the outcome would be any different, but at least everybody who has put these companies, and I don't know how many, we got 3 here, how many, others were involved in this process. It takes a lot of money and a lot of time to bid. Bidding a project, and you don't get everyone, you know it, but you spend a lot of dollars and a lot of manpower putting together these proposals, these bids. There ought to be questions that you have. You should have a question, and you should, in my opinion, communicate with your short list of vendors. I think doing so is doing a disservice not only to you, but obviously them and the taxpayers. So, I have concerns. I don't know the answer whether to take this back and let's open it up a little bit.
I've got.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to take the alternative view. This is the second bite at this apple. Mm-hmm. And as a result of the first process, what we did was to hire a consulting firm to make sure that the RFP was entirely transparent and neutral and created a level playing field for every vendor. That was the objection the first time around, that we had not taken the steps to make sure that it was a level playing field. Now, having done that, having received proposals from various firms, having gone through an extensive evaluation process, then here comes a second set of objections. We can consider objections until the cows come home, as long as there is an attempt to get to a certain predetermined place in the process. I think we have been as transparent as we could be. I think we have been thorough in our analysis. I personally feel for our staff who have gone through this process and are now being accused of at least misfeasance. I resent it on their behalf. I don't see the necessity of going through this again. I don't see the necessity of delaying the process. And I would move adoption of the staff's recommendation.
We have a motion.
I'll second it, just so we can vote on it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
There's a couple of the questions I still have, or at least one. I want to know why we have something right now that the vendor is refusing to support.
Sir, it's not a question of refusing to support. All vendors set lifetimes on the hardware, and we've owned this hardware beyond its designed life.
When we buy equipment, we buy a warranty with it. When that warranty expires, for a certain period of time, the vendor will sell you an extended warranty. When it gets to be a certain age, they'll stop selling you. They'll stop making that warranty available. So it's not that
How long have we been using this stuff?
The stuff that's out of warranty is
2005, 2006.
coming up on 7 years.
So in effect, every 7 years, we're going to be guaranteed to be buying new stuff. At least every 6 to 7 years. Because whoever we bought it from is not supporting it any longer. Therefore, we're forced to buy something new, whether it's working or not. And we've almost got to buy it even if it's working, because if it dies, nobody's going to support it.
At 7 years, you would have to buy new equipment as a result of it going out of warranty. In general, that's not the driver. That's not what causes you to buy new stuff. It's because you can buy better, faster, cheaper, sooner than that 7 years.
But that doesn't change from vendor to vendor. That's going to be standard across the board.
But again,
Correct.
what we're saying is that
In 2011,
once we make any decision, we're going to have to pay more money to change that decision in 6 or 7 years, or whenever we have to change that decision, or we're going to be strapped with a vendor for life.
in 2011, I talked to you while I was in Portland. June, somewhere around there, May, June. And I made it very clear that I would like to be kept in the loop about the steps moving forward. I did not know anything about this until May 29th, 2012, the Tuesday after Memorial Day weekend. That I have a challenge with.
And I guess one of the points that I would make, I'm not trying to chastise the team. They were put together, and then they, I think, were told where or where not they should be. But just as this court does when we go about choosing an architect or contractor for our buildings, we bring the teams in, we ask them to make presentations, we have a chance to ask questions. We do that in a very private setting. We encourage, because that's all we can do, because we're evaluating as a court, for the competitive vendors not to be in the room while the other competitor is making their presentation. When we did our SAP software, we again went through presentations. We again had people in. We again asked questions and asked them to display and to give their systems. I heard and agree with what Commissioner Fickus said in that I don't understand how we make a $4 or $5 million decision without giving a short list of people the opportunity to come in and make sure that we totally understood their presentation, and that if we had specific questions that we didn't feel like they were necessarily responding to the way where they might not have understood exactly what we were asking, why we didn't. I mean, we're talking about something which is not $4 million today. It's $4 million today, and then $4 million 3 or 4 years from now, and $4 million from that point forward. It is what I would consider to be one of the major decisions in the deal. And it sounds like we're happy as we can be with EMC and the job that they've done in the past. I just don't sense and feel like we have sat down and truly allowed our other two short list folks an opportunity to say why they feel like they need to replace everything we've got, why we should spend more money to do that. Or in Vine's situation, why we should spend less money and not do that. and it's well above me, but again, as Commissioner Wynn just mentioned, I don't understand why if he asked a year ago to be included, and I know we had this discussion not too long ago, and he asked to be included, why he only found out on May the 29th that any of this was going on. Any response? Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion fails 4-1. I would suggest, since we're already under a dark cloud as far as what we've got and what is supportable or not supportable, that very quickly you and your evaluation committee might want to consider bringing folks in and allowing them to ask questions, to describe what they're doing, and then try to come back one more time. I understand that we're at risk, and I'm sorry that we couldn't feel enough confidence to go forward today. But when you're talking about this kind of a major point, I would expect for you to bring the folks in and sit down and talk with them and not expect them to basically lay their cards out on the table in front of all their competitors and say, this is what we're going to do. And before you even ask them to turn in the RFP, allow their competitors to say, you know, that sounded like a pretty good idea. Why don't we do that too? Thank you all.
I highly recommend that whatever we do, since we are very close to bringing in a new CIO, allowing the new CIO an opportunity to weigh in and project his vision is important. I understand through my conversation with David that we are very close to capacity. Am I right?
Yes,
and that
sir.
is a concern. So if we can put our heads together to see if we can offload some of the data, to maybe we can bring in some additional disk, or maybe we can take advantage of the competitive nature of this business and reach out to the competitive companies out there like HP, like Vion, to see if they're willing to offer a demo system, allowing us to offload some of the data that we already have that will buy us some more time. You know, there are ways so we can buy more time and do this thing right. And I will be more than willing to provide my inputs if you want it. Thank you.
You know, I guess the only thing I would add to that is I'm reluctant to say we're going to wait till we hire somebody and because that's going to put us down potentially several months before that individual gets on board. And it may be shorter than that, but given the critical nature or the critical timeline that I think we're under, I wouldn't want to preclude them from starting until the new CIO begins that process. Mr. Manius, you look like you're dying to say something.
I may be dying, but I don't know about saying something, Your Honor.
Thank you for the laugh.
Let me make a suggestion then and a recommendation. Why don't, what we will do, and Judge, I'm basically following your comments, is that we will bring in all three vendors, not just two, but all three of these, because you can't bring two in without bringing the third one in also to talk to them. And we will need to do that. We'll maybe try to do that this week and set aside a reasonable time for them to talk to us about their solution. And Commissioner Wynn, if you would like to be part of those discussions, we'll be more than happy to include you in those discussions. I don't believe we can wait till we employ the new CIO. I think that we're at a critical point.
When are the CIO candidates coming in?
They're coming in on the 22nd.
On the 22nd of June.
You're right. So once we make a decision, we're probably looking at an August date on this.
August, okay.
You know, so let us bring them in and talk to you. I don't want you to, I ask that you not reject this bid, but simply you voted not to accept the recommendation. So if we can just simply not take any more action on this now, let us bring them in And Commissioner Brooks, I think that it would be important that you sit in on these presentations also, since both you and Commissioner Wynn are part of the IT element of the court. And then we will come back to the court with a final recommendation for your action.
I agree with you. Just need more due diligence.
Is that something that's acceptable to the
Now,
court?
is the action that we basically, no motion passed, so therefore we took no action on this particular, well, I guess there's a motion. So is that the way, what you just asked for, have we accomplished that with the motion
Yes,
that we
as long as we don't take any further action on this particular item.
All right. Then item number 7.
Yes, sir. Item in regards to bid number 2012-084. This is our annual contract for work uniforms. This is about a $130,000 expenditure. We received 8 bids. We had a pre-bid conference, not mandatory. 7 out of the 8 bids are wrong. They're messed up. There were addendums not included. We didn't get bids on full sections. We purchased uniforms for the precincts, for the central garage, for the health department. And we would recommend rejection and ask we be allowed to rebid with revised specifications.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Okay, Gary, you got to vote one way or the other.
Well, I thought I pushed it down.
You're voting yes or no?
I got you. I got you. I got you.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
Move approval of item 8I, 1, A, and B.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Appointment.
I have one. Passed out resume on Stephen Brom. This is for Child Protective Services, and make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion?
Has he been through the background check?
Yes. And I will probably have an additional person coming up in the next week or 2.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. I would like to, there is a I-35 corridor committee that Ken Barr has served on for us in the past, and he has asked to have or they've asked for a reappointment, and he has said he would rather not. Russell Laughlin from Hillwood has indicated that he would have a willingness to serve, and I would like to move his appointment to that committee.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And then Ken Barr, who I mentioned earlier, is currently the chair of NTTA. He is our appointment, one of our 2 appointments on that board, and his appointment is up, and I would like to move for his reappointment to that committee.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any other appointments? None appearing. Then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move for approval of the claim and the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Then we will recess our open meeting and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under Sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code.
The corridor would be simple.
Having returned from closed session and there being no business to conduct at this time, we are adjourned.